Bruce Johnson here, and today I want to talk to you about how accepting reality is infinitely better than any other option. And this is a little bit different topic than we normally talk about here at BizScalers, because we're normally talking about how to grow and scale your business. And in a couple minutes, I think you'll understand why it's incredibly important. It's not necessarily a tactical or strategic thing, but it's a mindset thing that plays a big role in your ability to be able to grow and scale anything, and just to handle life in general. So to get us started, I want to ask you a question. The question I want to ask you today is, when something bad happens to you, how do you respond? For example, let's say an employee decides that they're going to leave, and now you not only have your job, but you have their job, in addition to having to find somebody to replace them. So a bunch of stuff just fell on your plate. Or you've got an employee who's just abusing PTO, and you're trying to figure out what to do. Or you have an employee who really screwed up, and you need to put them under a PIP, a performance improvement plan. Or let's say a competitor stole one of your key clients away. Or the government enacts some kind of regulation that determines whether or not you can or can't be open, or what you can sell and what you can't sell, or how you need to carry out your business. When something external to you happens, and it could be personal too, you get a diagnosis from a doctor, or someone in your family passes away from COVID-19, or something else. Like when something negative happens, how do you respond? If you're like most people, chances are there's a mental part of you that gets lost. In other words, you want to push that thing away. You don't want to accept reality for what it is. You wish it were something else. You wish it were like what it was before this thing happened. And so whenever something outside of our control happens, we almost always have a negative reaction, right? So we either get angry about it, or we get frustrated, we might get depressed, we could get bitter about that thing. We just wish that this thing that happened, this reality, wasn't the reality any longer. We wanted the one we had before this event happened, before the employee left, or before your business partner decided to take the company away from you. Whatever the bad thing is that happened to you, how do you respond? Well, if you respond negatively and you wish away, then what you do is you end up being stuck in the present or past. And that doesn't give you the power to run your company or your life or your relationships to move forward. It keeps you stuck. The ability to accept reality for what it is empowers us to move forward. And when we don't, it holds us back. So let me give you an illustration of something that just happened to me yesterday to help illustrate this principle. Now, in no way am I about to relate this thing that just happened to me yesterday to what you might be going through, right? Recently my father is diagnosed with cancer. So infinitely worse than this, somebody passing away. Losing your business, having to lay off 1,000 employees. There are lots of things much worse than this. So I'm not trying to equate what happened to me yesterday with how bad or severe the thing is that you might be going through. But the principle is always the same. So here's what happened. So back in January, I was working out, and I was doing some push-ups, and my wrist started bothering me. So I iced it, then tried resting it, tried doing all the exercise stuff you're supposed to do. Then, got the steroid pack. I went through this whole modality of treatments from doctor to ortho. And then yesterday I was finally going to be meeting with the wrist surgeon. So when I was going in the MRI, I noticed that there was a ganglion cyst, a small one, but it's ganglion cyst. It was in this area over here. And I thought that must be the problem because everything else we'd been working on wasn't working. So my expectation going into yesterday was I was finally meeting with a surgeon who could do the aspiration, meaning you take out the fluid from the cyst. And I was really excited about that. So we meet in, you have to go through all the different options of things that you could do to try. And then hopefully I was figuring he would get to that point, he'd remove the fluid, and life would be great again. This appendage, which was basically useless for the last couple of months, would once again be useful. So I was excited. So I'm going through, after about an hour, he says, now, I'm not sure yet, so let's try this. Do you have some time? And I'm like, Doc, you're the most important thing in my schedule. I'm only 59. I want my hand. I'm hopefully going to be around for a lot longer. Whatever it takes, I'm in, right? So he says, well, I want to try some cortisone shots, some steroid shots. I want to try in 3 places to see if we can do this, because this is not usual. It's kind of like a puzzle for him. It's always nice to know that you're not normal. And so we're going through that. We did, and you had to space them out. So it was an extra 2 hours. So it's like over 3 hours in. But we're not seeing the progress that he wanted to see from the cortisone shot. So he says, well, here's the problem. I'm finally at the place to agree that I think it's the ganglion cyst that's the problem. Problem is that's on the front of your wrist, not the back of your wrist. On the back, I could aspirate it, but here, it's actually surgery because I'd have to move a bunch of things away to be able to get to it. So there's only one thing that we haven't tried short of surgery, and that's I'm going to put you in a splint for the next 4 weeks. Now, up until that moment, I was kind of a happy guy. Like, I'm not happy about the problem. I'd accepted reality, but I was really hoping for, a quick needle in, move fluid out, life would be back to normal. All of a sudden, it wasn't that way. So all of a sudden, my attitude I could catch was starting to turn from being positive to kind of, I'm not happy now. And then as I'm walking out the car and I'm realizing how many things I can't do with this any longer. Like I could still at least, do some things with a bad wrist, but in cast, I couldn't do a lot of things. And so all of a sudden, I got in the car and I did, hey, Bruce, you're a former preacher. Practice what you preach, right? This is reality. And I said, I can either fight it, which is totally wasted time. Like I have no control over this. For 4 weeks, it is stuck. And by the way, I did try negotiating, how about in 2 weeks? Can we check it out? No, 4 weeks. That's the protocol. You're going to wait the entire 4 weeks. And so this is reality, right? And I quickly said, since it's reality, I'm not going to waste my energy on being frustrated that I have a wrist in a splint. I'm simply going to accept it. So now I can move to problem solving. In other words, I can move forward. And that process happened pretty quickly. So when I was talking to my wife in the afternoon, I said, I think one of the things that most people don't get is that I think the same thoughts that people think. I just don't give them oxygen. Like I've trained myself over time to realize I don't want anything external to me or something that I can't control to control me. I can only focus in on me and what I can do moving forward. As soon as I accept reality, then I can start figuring out the next couple things. And I think the reason I think that way is because after being in pastoral ministry for a couple decades, and then over the last 15 years working with business owners and entrepreneurs, I've just watched an awful lot of people be stuck. And when you watch this over and over again, you realize people are choosing to be stuck because they're not accepting reality as it is. It doesn't mean that the thing that happened is something you have to like, and it doesn't have to mean that it's something you agree with. Right? The fact that your spouse might have left, you don't have to agree that was a good thing, but it is reality. They did leave, right? So now the question is, how do I respond? The employee did leave. The business partner stole the company. Like it's reality. Accept reality for what it is. And then once you accept reality, then you can move to problem solving. In the 5 stages of grief, people go through all 5, sometimes 3 or 4 of them, and they're not always in the same order. But most people go through some stages. What most counselors don't tell you is the speed at which you go through doesn't have to be long. Right? Now, if it's something really severe, it might take a little bit longer. But you can also go through stuff pretty quickly because it's a choice. And as a business owner and entrepreneur, speed matters. The ability for you mentally to get back in the game when something bad happens is pretty critical to your success. So the faster that you can accept reality for the way it is, then you don't allow the present or the past to control you. You're now focusing on the future. And the question is, now how do I make this thing work? For example, in my case, and again, this is low level. I mean, on the scale of bad things, this is low. One of my projects for the summer was I was going to start working on a book. I'd just written that out, 2 weeks ago. Like, we got to get the book started before the end of the summer. As soon as this happened, I tried typing. I'm realizing, that's it. That ain't going to happen. And then I said, wait a second. Okay, this is reality. Why do I have to give up on a book? I mean, I could record it and have it transcribed. Or I could start using dictation software. Like, don't let this get in the way of moving forward. Now, I'm just problem solving. Same thing happens to you. Whatever the thing that is, as bad as it might be, you can either try to push reality away and not want it to be there and be angry or frustrated or bitter, or you can accept it for what it is. And that gives you the power to then start solving the problem and moving forward. That's when hope returns. The speed at which you can do that, from going from being frustrated or angry and letting something external control you, to you being able to take back control, accept reality, and then figure out what are the next couple things I do. The reality is you lost 40% of your revenue this year. Okay, now what do? You can't get angry that you lost 40%. You can only figure out, moving this point forward, what in the world do I do to get that back? So accept reality for what it is. It's infinitely better than any other option. It's never worth being frustrated, angry, bitter for months or years or for any length of time. As fast as you can, just like I was doing in the car. Work through it mentally, and you'll find that the faster you go through, the better you're going to be able to lead your business and your company forward. And that same principle works in your family. It works in all your relationships. It works with your health. Doesn't matter what the thing is. The sooner you accept reality, it gives you the power to move forward, and that is worth everything. So hopefully you enjoyed this week's lesson. I know it's a little bit different than what we normally talk about here in BizScalers, but I think it's just as critical to your ability to grow and scale your company. Hopefully you found this helpful. If you did, I encourage you to pass this along to some other business owners and entrepreneurs. If you're watching this on YouTube or listening in a podcast, make sure you hit the subscribe button. If you're watching this on social media, hit the like button or the follow button. And then if you're interested and want to get more ideas and help, make sure you check out the BizScalers Club at scalingclub.com, scalingclub.com. We're here to help you grow and scale a great business. So until next week, to your accelerated success, Bruce out.